right, good evening, everybody. This is the October 4th, 2023 Select Board meeting coming to order. The Select Board will convene a hybrid meeting on Wednesday, March 7th, 2023 at 6 p.m. at the Hadley Senior Center and town Zoom meeting. So
March 7th.
March
Sorry.
March 7th.
How about October 4th?
Yeah, October 4th. There we go. In accordance with the Mass General Law, Chapter 27 of the Acts of 2022, signed by Governor on February 15th, 2022, I announce that this meeting of the Select Board is being recorded by Hadley Media, the Select Board's office via Zoom, and ask if there's anyone present who also is recording the meeting.
No one else is indicating they're recording.
All right. No one is saying that they are recording. Let the minutes reflect that nobody has indicated that they are recording this meeting. Or if someone is recording, please identify yourself for this minutes. We will do public comments. Is there anybody here for public comments tonight? Yep. Oh, we have Justin Peeland. Good evening. Would you like to speak, Justin?
Sorry, can you hear me?
Yep. Can you turn? Yep, I can now. What
Sorry,
can we do for you?
Oh, there I am.
Can you identify yourself this evening, or are you an address?
Yep, my name is Justin Pelland at 8 Hadley Place. Am I okay to start going into what I want to talk about, or do you need any more info?
Yep, and you have a 3-minute limit is what we usually do.
Okay, I'll stand with that. Thank you for the time tonight. I'm here with a kind of two-part request related to the town website and the town meeting calendar. Let me just start by saying I think today, especially in the current political climate, participation in local government elections is more important than ever. And I think we can't really increase representation in our government if we don't increase participation. I think the current town meeting calendar and notification system is kind of acting as a barrier to that. So what I wanted to do is just kind of express maybe some of my frustrations or difficulties when trying to stay involved and stay apprised of what's going on. I know there have been some planning board meetings that I probably would have attended if I had had the foresight to check the agenda, but with everything being posted, max or minimum of 48 hours in advance, it's sometimes hard to check the calendar every couple of days. So ultimately, what I'd like to see is some kind of resident notification system, be it email list or some other method. I'm sure there are several options out there that we could explore. Just something that could notify the public when a public meeting is coming, and maybe they could get a sense of what the agenda might be, just so that we can increase participation in various committees and boards and meetings. I also think the town website, as I'm not very familiar with how it's been built, but it seems to be missing quite a bit of information, and there's some cases where I think the information on there is outdated. So I don't know what the right answer is for all of this, but it seems like there are towns that have sort of figured this issue out and have better systems in place. But I think we kind of owe it to our residents to just reduce the barriers to participation, and notification about meetings and those agendas seems to be one of those barriers. I think there's been some discussion about this in the past, but I'm just here basically to ask the select board to make this a priority.
Thank you. We will take that certainly under advisement. We don't usually have any discussion at this time for your comments. I'll just inform you that we are going over the town warrant tonight. It is opened and we plan to close it this evening. So you can stay on and listen to it, or you can watch YouTube and, I don't know if you get Spectrum or not. It is on channel 192. And so it is on there also, and it's on YouTube also, correct? So you may also follow us on that also. So you either may stay on and listen, or you may do those two other things.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right, thank you for your comments. Appreciate it. Anybody else? No. Okay, we'll move forward. We have a consent agenda. We have warrants PR 2405, PR 2404, AP 24125, AP 2412, AP 2411, AP 24115.
Those are S's.
S's. Oh, good. See, I can't see with my glasses or without them. So maybe I'll take the glasses off since I had surgery. Oh, yeah, it's an S. Good. All right, so glasses don't do anything. We have minutes from June 15th, 2022, December 21st, 2022, February 1st, 2023, May 3rd, 2023, May 17th, 2023, and August 16th, 2023. We have a DPW administrative assistant. Do we want to pull that one out for Scott? No. All right. That's Bethany Lannon is going to be the DPW administrative assistant. We have a Hadley Dispatch resignation of Daniel Tebow effective October 16th. And I believe that our chief wanted to speak on that. So I'm going to pull that out for a minute. We also have a traffic control. No? Did you want to speak on? You don't have to talk about that. Traffic control officer appointment, Melanie Cianciola. Cianciola. No. And we have the resignation of animal control officer Kyle Dragon.
Motion to approve?
Second.
Okay, I just want to make a comment to Dan Tebow. You're probably watching tonight, and I guess I won't be talking to you about snow days anymore. So thank you for your service to the town also, Dan. It's been up and down, but you and I have been in negotiations many years. I've been at this for 21 years, so I'm sure you and I have more time together than some other people. So I wish you luck in whatever your next endeavors are. Kyle, thank you also for your service as our animal control officer, and wish you well in your next endeavors also. Roll call vote.
Roll call vote, Keegan,
Yes.
Trembling.
Yes.
Nevin Smith.
Yes.
And Parsons.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, approved. All in favor. It was a unanimous or minus absent Randy Eisner today. Okay. See, I never want to get off of this thing because I gotta get back on again. Okay, now we start all over again. Okay, so tonight we have the DPW director offer letter. And Troy, did you want to speak on that tonight? It's all. Okay, did anybody have anything?
I'm assuming Scott's all set for this, right? Yep.
Okay.
Motion to approve?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Keegan,
Yes.
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 and Parsons.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. That was all in favor, absent Randy Eisner. We have board and committee appointments. So we have with us this evening, is he, Alan? Hi, come on up to the mic here. And
How do you pronounce your last name?
Borgals.
Burgals.
You're very
Okay.
Canadian, you might say Borgo.
So you would like to be with us. That's for
CPA.
official- CPA,
Yep.
yeah, it doesn't say on this thing there, so. You want to give us a little introduction to you and let us know why you want to be on the CPA committee?
Sure. I moved to Hadley just a couple months ago. I've been living in the Pioneer Valley for 3 years now. And really enjoyed every time I came through Hadley. I really enjoyed the green space and the Norwood bike path, and so was really excited to move to the area. I'd really like to be a part of the CPA because I'd like to continue to see green space be preserved, and I'm also very passionate about the expansion of affordable housing, which is something else that falls under the CPA. So those are both interests of mine that I'd like to pursue and see CPA funding use for. So that's why I'd like to be involved.
And you were aware that this was also the appointment to the bylaw review committee?
Yes, yeah, I was aware of that, although I had not, hadn't received any like correspondence about whether or not I I had asked if I could apply or be on both committees, but I hadn't received a response.
So his application said that he was interested in all, but he connected with Mary Thayer.
Yeah,
And he's not connected in the same way as part of the bylaw.
I wasn't sure if I could do both or like, I would love to be involved in both if possible, yes.
I mean, there's no reason not. It's just advocating for the bylaw committee that was aware. I did agree with.
Yeah, and I would like to be involved with both. I'm passionate about local government and
What is your
it's important to be
background?
involved.
What is your background again?
I work in public policy research. I work from home. I actually work 50 feet away from here. So getting here was, traffic was rough. But I work from home. I am a project manager. I work for a private company that does research for the national, federal and state governments on a variety of issues. So I'm very passionate professionally and personally about local government and public policy. And so that's why I'm interested in the bylaw review committee and the community preservation committee. So I just want to be involved as a citizen.
Great. I'm always thrilled when younger people are starting to come out now, so it's a real pleasure to have you sign up
Yes.
for these committees. Thank you.
Yes,
Motion.
I think you've got an excellent background, so I'm happy to make a motion to accept Adam as a new member of the bylaw review committee and the community preservation committee.
I'll second that.
All those in favor, roll call.
Egan,
Yes.
Chugler,
Yes.
Livingston.
Yes.
Parsons.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Great, thanks. Ed.
Thank you.
Congratulations. We look forward to working
Welcome.
with you. Does Mary want to say anything?
Mary, did you want to say anything at all? Are you good? Are you here for the bylaws? Are you here for town meeting?
I'm here for, whoops, I'll put my camera up. Especially for the warrant, but I'm very glad to have Adam on board. It's nice to have a full committee again of 9 people, and we look forward to working with him. So I will email him some more information, and it'll be great to have him on the committee. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you, Mary.
Jimmy's on the bylaw.
Jimmy, you're on the bylaw. Have you met Adam at all?
No, if you could please give him my email because we have a meeting coming up in 2 weeks. So make sure he gets on the meeting invite. We meet at this, I don't know how convenient it is for him. We meet at 9 o'clock in the morning on basically the 3rd Tuesday of every month.
Yes, I'm aware. I can make it.
Okay.
So Jennifer will give you,
I'll send an email with all of that.
yeah, Jennifer will send you emails also.
Perfect, thank you.
Great.
Thank you. Thank you, Jim. Okay, let's go to the special town meeting. Let's go for the warrant.
All right, Linda's not here tonight. If you have any really detailed questions about borrowing, we do have Paul here from the Capital Planning Committee, and he spoke with Linda today, and he and I spoke as well. So we'll go through the warrant. What I want to ask is, as we go through this, let me know if I'm going into too much detail, or if you want me to go faster. Okay, so I'm just going to go line item by line item for the financial part to explain what some of those amounts are. So if we go right to the first article, this is the general fund budget, and these are adjustments. Then I'll explain what some of them are. Linda has explained it. The budget program, which is a software program to help with the budget presentation, the data entry, as well as working with the department heads and the boards who have budgets to be able to submit it in a more consistent way. Most importantly, it's a program that can be transferred to the next person as we look down 2 or 3 years for our succession plan. And that really is our goal So that's what that is for. That is it's prorated for this year. The legal expenses, involves, we have taken on a couple more issues that have increased some of our usage with legal expenses. And that also includes our charter review legal expense. That's a special attorney that our firm does not have. Usually that's what one group does. And so that it also includes that. Building operations, that is computers. So this year, there is 20,000 in to replace employees' computers. And as well as you'll see it in capital requests, we'll have it for the server as well. And if you have questions specific to that, Jennifer can answer that. Our insurance expenditures, we've increased our deductibles, but it has resulted in a savings in our insurance. So Sue is on as well if you have any questions regarding that. So I'll just go through and you can go back and let me know if you have questions. The police cruiser is in there. We are really trying to work towards reoccurring expenses that we have every single year to go back into the operating expenses instead of using capital to putting it into capital. So it's going to be in every single year to replace a cruiser. And so this is back in capital for this year. The Board of Health expenses, this was just an error in submitting the budget last year. The mosquito control fee was not added, so we do need to pay that for this year. Veteran Services, you've been here when Steve's here and has explained that there was the increase in the veterans cost. And then, as you know, this year we have had 2 new unions form, and that one of them is our municipal employees, anybody who's not in a union, mostly administrative or clerk. There's a couple department heads in there as well. So that's an anticipation of what we will be needing to adjust that. You guys have reached your agreements, but it does need to be ratified at town meeting. So that is the cost of making those adjustments. And there are a couple personnel contracts that are included in here as well. What Linda is going to do is she's going to have an exhibit to refer to so that those will all be broken down per departments and account number so people know where that's coming from.
So I assume it will also have the from and to the original budget number and what?
Yeah, from and to, yes, yeah.
Could I just go back to the legal?
Yes.
You said something about a charter?
Our cable review,
Cable,
our cable renewal, thank you. I tend to always go back and just say charter, but it's the renewal with charter, yes.
Okay.
All right. Moving to some cleanup prior capital balances. This is just transferring following the balances from the prior town meeting articles. And you can see it's there for the mini loader and where that is going to be transferring to. And then 2.2, to lower the borrowing authorizations. We had a fire department vehicle and the highway plow truck that had money left over. So it's amending the authorized borrowing that we need to do. Capital articles. Let's see. I don't know if you have any questions about the server. That's a one-time, every 3 or 4 years.
Sure. If I can get the ordinance, maybe I can do it to 7, just so.
Beautiful. So as we're ready for one. The computer aided, this is the emergency dispatch protocol software. There is a grant that is being submitted. But in case we don't get that grant, that's the funding for it. If you have any questions, Mike is here. Any questions on that? The computers, cameras, and audio and visual equipment for Hadley Media. That is items that Alex, if he needs throughout the year, that he's identified, that's the amount, $5,000. So I'm going to, I guess I'm gonna I'm gonna skip to Article 6. So as you know, we've had a feasibility study that has worked with an architect to come up with a study of where to put the new DPW, and the recommendation is to do it where it is right now. And we have an estimate. The $3 million is for the architectural and design work, as well as the OPM for the building. So I think it's no surprise there is a concern about the cost of the whole project, as well as the concern about architectural and design work being done and then not being able to move forward with the construction. We know that they need a new building. We know that that garage needs work. But there's enough concern that what I did do is I had reached out to the chair of the finance committee, David Phil, to ask David, when they met, what questions would be helpful for me to have answers to, if I could, to provide them with answers. And the two questions that I think I've heard most often has been, what is, if the design comes in, how long is it good for? If the construction isn't enough. And the other question was, can we do a phased approach? So I reached out to Michael Richards, who is the discipline lead for Weston & Sampson, who's the architect firm that we're working with. I asked him those questions. He said, you can do a phased approach. There's typically four phases to construction, and it's the feasibility, it's schematics, it's design, and it's construction. The schematics, you did that with the schools. You had a schematic study. And what that does is that really hones in on what does the town really need at that location? What's the foundation like? Is it a pre-designed building? Is it a metal building? What's the plumbing? What's the electrical? What's the fire protection? And really focusing on that. And then all that information is gathered and it's given to an estimator who gives a very, very accurate information of what the town can expect it's going to cost. Often that's done together with the design and the architect. But the suggestion that Mike gave, and we were very fortunate he was able to jump onto the finance committee meeting to discuss this. I have updated Paul McCretsky, and I've updated Jim's here as well, who chairs the DPW feasibility. So to explain why I did that, it was just with the finance committee, and they understand the reasoning behind it. And the recommendation from the finance committee would be to look at that, to use that instead of doing this $3 million architectural fee, is for $220,000 to do that schematic designs. That will really, I think that the town can handle it at this point a little bit better. And I think it's really smart to keep moving on this project. We need a new building. But we understand that right now it's a lot of money. And I think the concerns are valid, that it has been expressed. So that is something it's really the select board's decision whether to put it on the warrant or not. But what has been spoken about is to pull Article 6. And if you go back to the capital articles, it would be borrowing within the levy. And that's where I put the new building initial expenses.
So how is the schematic that we already have?
We don't have a schematic.
It's not technically a schematic, but it's the layout and the space needs and everything else for the DPW. How is that much different than what?
It's significantly different. Significantly. It's going into the details with those specialties areas. It's, when you do a feasibility study, you're looking at what other buildings have been putting up and what has been working the best. You're not looking at the detailed cost from the feasibility study. If you were to do it as a part of the design, you would have the schematics and design being done together. But in some cases, in some towns, and Hadley's done it before, they do the schematics first. And so that you still have momentum to get this building done, but it's in a more manageable way. It would give you a lot of really good information for a lot less money in the beginning.
And why do we think that having the schematic study should be an end instead of part of the the total picture, because,
It is part of the total. It's not an end.
but why don't we do the total picture if it's going to be, what will happen after the schematic study that will make the town say, oh God, no, we don't want to do this?
I think it puts us in a better place as we figure out how we're gonna fund it. Because right now, for the town to afford a $27 million building that's significant. And I think that's, to make this successful, is to put it so that we can get more information, very accurate. But it will take a little bit longer, but I think it will give us more time to be able to make this as successful as possible. It's also, we often bring up this bill that is being proposed by our legislators to have that municipal authority to
Right,
help fund it.
Ready when that hits the,
But we're not there yet, and they aren't there yet. This is going to be I suspect, based on things that have come up in, throughout my years in municipal government, when a new bill comes out, it's not always funded as much as we want it to. And then what's the criteria? And I think we're assuming too much that we would automatically be ready for that. I think we're getting closer to it. But I think, and I'm certainly really speaking on behalf of Jim and Paul and David Phil right now, as those three entities have talked about this. So I don't want to, Paul or Jim, if you have anything to add to that, I don't want to speak on behalf of either of your committees.
Can you chime in?
The only comments I would have is this would also buy us a little more time. We're still moving forward with this project. And we will hopefully get some type of an answer from the legislature as to whether or not this bill is going to pass. And I think that would really dictate the direction that we go in with this entire project.
what kind of time period is involved in getting a schematic study design done?
I remember asking Mike that, and I honestly don't remember what the time frame was. I mean, it's certainly less than a year. It's
So we'd
certainly,
be ready for
We- we-
annual town meeting for the next phase.
I would suspect.
Yeah.
I would suspect.
Yeah, and I'm definitely in strong favor of doing something. The cost of these buildings aren't gonna go down.
No.
But honing it in, I mean, what we found in our other building projects was, while they're going through the schematic, if we find, fire suppression systems and different things that are popping up, it allows us time to maybe, take a relook at the design. Maybe if we want to give up on something, if we know that it's going to really push the project up.
Well, because we've had problems with some of our new buildings right now that weren't anticipated when the projects went through. And I think doing this would give us a better outlook on what we need to do and the design of it, and having people pouring in on the schematics. And I wanted to have Jim, do you have anything that you wanted to say about doing the schematics first?
I'm in favor of anything that'll get this project moving forward. And if the schematic is like a small bite forward, and I think it'll be way more palatable to the town as opposed to trying to jump off and bite the $3 million for the full design, because that's a big pill to swallow right now. And the smaller amount will get us moving forward, and hopefully in, no later than the fall town meeting, hopefully for the annual town meeting in May, we'll have something that we can, a design that we can request at that point.
Yeah, and I want to make sure that, what we're doing, if in fact, and I agree, there's never a guarantee the legislature is going to be successful in pushing forward with that building authority. But the more we can show that we're ready, the better off we're going to be in making an application. So, I think we need to do this.
But I think having Paul's and Jim's blessing on this also, because they're have been so instrumental in starting on this DPW building and stuff and getting it moving, that if we can at least get this under our belts and whatever. And thank you for Carolyn for getting some answers for us. So I would say let's go with that for now and leave that there. Do you need a motion to have that?
Well, do you, because we're not really voting on the article.
Yeah, you're not voting on the articles, but
Okay.
so, but as long as I understand you, you're comfortable with me pulling Article 6 and add, and keeping
And
this in
putting
to
that
borrow
line
under
item.
that.
Yeah. Amy, are you good with that?
Yeah.
Amy? Okay,
Okay.
all right, so let's pull 6.
Any other questions with Article 3?
Nope.
Okay. Article 4 is the school locker room. I haven't lived here and I haven't worked here longer than 3 years, but one of the things that I have heard is this has been on the wish list for many, many, many years.
How about since I was on school committee?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm saying many years, we've been,
And all the people who have to use it when we go to town meeting over there.
yeah, all I can remember, now I can't say what I remember, but anyway, go, skip it.
So there's nobody from the
Yeah.
schools. Twitter.
No, I was-
No,
I was on the school committee meeting the other night, and this has just been something that has been long sought after, whether it be using their capital funds or whatever that they have, school choice money or whatever, they just need to get this done. So then it
Yeah.
had gotten on to the capital planning, so.
Yeah.
Amy, were you saying something?
No, I was gonna say I'm envious that they're finally gonna do something. I mean, I obviously had Jim there from the year 2000 to 2006 and played, junior varsity and varsity sports. And I found the locker rooms, at least for the girls, to be wildly inefficient. And there was, so ridiculous amount of showers. And I don't think anyone ever used them except to check in if you were shy.
Yeah, I don't think anybody showered anyway, anytime back in those days.
and if I can clarify the vote, Paul, if I remember correctly, it's 3-2. That's because we only had 3 members, correct? And 2 were absent.
That's correct. That's why it's 3-0-2. Yeah.
So that's not 2 voted against it. I just wanted to
Right.
clarify
And
or
the
abstain.
funds for this would be, did I hear somebody say from choice funds, school choice funds, or it's gonna be?
No, these are on,
These are capital.
Okay,
Debt exclusion.
yeah, those will be debt exclusions.
Okay, thank you.
Next.
Next, okay, the fire department ladder truck. Do you want to talk about that, Mike? Or just if you have questions, Mike is here.
let's let Mike talk.
It's time.
Actually, if you don't mind, I would like to clarify something because I think there might be some confusion as to what we're actually requesting. And again, we'll have a presentation ready. It will be much shorter than the ambulance one. Learn that lesson, but. So this request or this capital article has actually been in, was actually put in 2014. Brian West at the time had requested get it, put a placeholder in there. So that's been through capital every year. Obviously, we weren't anticipating and getting it right away. We have historically always tried to build out a minimum of a 25-year truck across the board. So our engine 2, which ended up remaining with Hadley, our pumper, actually was a 1987. And then after the new station was built, we finally were able to move it down the road. So 3rd-year truck, obviously. So what we're looking to do is to actually spec out and purchase. It's called a Quint. So everybody thinks that we're purchasing a ladder truck with just the ladder on it. We have not run that way since I started. It was actually prior to that, we received a free Maxim 1951 ladder truck from, I believe it was donated from Amherst, if I'm correct. The first fire that I went to was actually at the First Church, and I had the pleasure of crawling up that ladder. And, I was a carpenter at the time, so I'm not afraid of ladders, but when you're actually crawling up and you end up about 2 feet below where you were hoping to get, just because of the age of the ladder, the fire department worked really hard. And I know there was a little bit of contention because it was originally slated to be paid for by an expansion of Cinemark. They were gonna do tower theaters there with a Sears store underneath. That fell out, so the town was gracious enough to support us with the purchase of, at the time, approximately a $450,000 Quint. And the Quint is called, it's called the Swiss Army knife of apparatus. So it's not just a ladder, it's also a pump. So it's like our regular pumpers. It also has a 500-gallon water tank on it. Our regular pumpers have a 750-gallon. It has ground ladders on it, and it's also has, you know, a good size hose bed, so we can comply with NFPA standard. And then we can fit, we normally slate it for either 5 or 6 crew members on it. And the last one that we built out was 75 feet. I know that we were a little bit disappointed that we hadn't gone with a longer ladder because it's made it quite a challenge. You all see what we're protecting in town. We have an enormous commercial base. We have 6 hotels. All the hotels that we have currently, either we have access to the building with our ladders, or we have actually spec'd it during design that they actually provide us a lawn that can support our ladder truck if it has to drive out in the back of it. So Homewood Suites, for example, the back is all aerated, compacted gravel grass. It's got little grass slots in it, so grass will grow. They have to maintain it and plow it. If we didn't have that access, our 75-foot ladder would not reach on the backside of the building. The Chinese immersion school, we have to back our ladder truck into the new section of the school in order to reach the roof. So we are speccing out a 103-foot ladder truck. So again, this also has a pump. It has a tank on it. And I can't tell you how critical that ladder is to us. And Jim is on here. He probably could tell us the history of it, but there was actually a bylaw in place where you were not allowed to actually have a any kind of living area or anything on a floor above the second floor because we didn't have a ladder to actually to access it. My concerns with not doing this right now is building construction right now, lightweight construction, trusses. Having to put a firefighter on these roofs is hazardous, to say the least, if we even can put a firefighter on it. Because now we've all added photovoltaics. So now we have solar all over the roof. So we're really limited. I can tell you that this truck is also, I heard there was some questions about mutual aid. Why our ladder truck has to go out for mutual aid. We have a mutual aid agreement for Hampshire County and for the state. So we are part of the same mutual aid agreement that brings in resources. So for example, my first year as chief, I was nice enough to allow the that little plaza to burn down because, you know, we couldn't get it, put it out with 1.5 million gallons of water on Route 9. That was my first fire. And the ladder truck that we have right now ran for 3 days pouring water on it. It's an elevated hose stream, so we don't have to lug hose up. It actually has an elevated stream, and it's also built so that we can actually do rescue with it. So again, this is the Swiss Army knife of apparatus. The $2 million price tag, it was actually 1.15 back in 2014. It's gone up consistently, and I can tell you that it's going to take a minimum of 36 months to build this truck. So even if it was approved, went to town meeting, it went to the ballot, and was approved, we're still talking about 3 years before we would even see it, if we're lucky.
And is this like the DPW, when you order it, it sets the price?
That's correct. And we, actually, Linda and I had actually worked on when we purchased the new rescue pumper, when we combined 2 trucks, we did have the ability to put a large, a reasonable size of funding down, which actually decreased the upfront cost of it. And it does lock in that. Does lock in that price. And there are some options of doing that. So you're talking about a minimum of 3 years just to see it. So we're looking 2028 if you're to receive it. There's the training time, there's putting the equipment on it. So the second part of that is the EPA is coming out with new requirements for emissions. Next year, the number of motors that they have available to meet these is slim to none right now, and the increased cost to meet those emissions for all these truck builders, you could potentially see an additional 125,000 if we were not to put this into place. That's a potential. I'm not saying that's a guarantee, but having spoken with multiple truck companies at our chiefs associations other fire chiefs, that is the potential that we could see. Again, we really do need to take a look at a longer ladder. We learned that very early on when we purchased the 75-foot. We're doing what we need to do with it. The other plan in this, so the reason why it's 2.15 is we have a 2000 Seagraves mean stick, which is it's a quint. Again, that's what we have at our center station. We are looking to refurb that truck. And there's been some questions about, well, why not just refurb it and keep it and not get this ladder truck? This refurb is to give us maybe eight additional years, 8 to 10 years additional, moving this ladder truck up to the North Station. So we will have a ladder pumper hose bed truck to so that we can actually move our engine 3, which is a 2006 pumper. It's just a pumper. It was the first edition of the Seagraves Marauder, and we've had a number of issues with getting it into pump. It's been kind of an issue for us. It's been to the manufacturer numerous times. We have a method of how to make sure we can manage that. It's reviewed, it's ran every day, inspected every day. But we're looking to move that truck out and move this truck in, which would then push our need for another pumper back, because in 2006, when we received the new ladder truck in 2008, it would be another probably 6 months to refurb that engine. So we're talking 2009. So now you have or 2029, I should say. So you have a 2006 pumper. We already have it in capital for replacement, and I think another three years. And you're looking at $1 million price tag for a new pumper today. So again, that's why we're trying to extend the lifetime of that. And it's a very strong truck right now with our new maintenance officer, Brian Washkevitz. He's on top of it all the time, having spoken with multiple truck companies, going through what a refurb means. They make it very clear that, they don't have the crystal ball on certifications for the ladder and for the pump, but the plan is to go through that initially, make sure we can do that. And if it comes back that they find something that's a real concern and defective, then we don't go to that, we don't go that road. But that's the plan. And we're hoping that everybody will support it, and we'll have some additional information on that.
Carolyn, do you know, on the capital planning, it looks like there was one vote against it, or either Paul or Carolyn. Do you know what the reasoning was behind that?
Oh, is he still on?
Oh, he's still on. He just came back. Hi, Paul.
Sorry. Went to get a glass of water.
What was the negative vote, Paul, on the fire department truck? One person voted against it.
One person voted against it because they felt that, I believe if I remember the discussion, they said Northampton has 1 or 2 ladders, Mike?
Northampton has a platform ladder.
Platform ladder. I think they
are waiting to replace it.
I think he was asking, why do we need 2? If I'm not mistaken. And then you explained the rationale behind.
I think the rationale was this one is a longer ladder than the one that we presently have, which we need a longer ladder for the new building. So
and it's here, not in Northampton.
It's
needed.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, and logically, I mean, and again, who knows what Route 9 is going to look like
Well,
the
you
next 10 years.
Well, you even have the storage unit there off of North Maple Street. That's not a small building.
And this ladder is used
several
for more
stories.
than just that as well. I mean, we use it, it's hazmat. I mean, this ladder has gone out on task force assignments across the state where we're all part of mutual aid agreements because everybody can't afford to have, 2 or 3 ladders. So
Yeah.
we're a critical resource to our communities. Amherst has a older platform and a Quint. Their next truck, the second truck they had purchased was a Quint, and their platform it's really old. So I don't know how much longer they'll have that. But again, another positive of that is we have to send this truck out annually for certification, and that would allow us not have a ladder truck in our community. We wouldn't have to send both out at the same time. So it's redundancy, and again, it's not just a ladder truck. And I think that was maybe the confusion is this is a pumper hose bed
Mhm.
I mean, it has everything that you need on it to fight the fire. It was one of the first trucks at the J&J fire in Amherst, the last working farm.
Mhm.
That truck was on the lawn trying to suppress fire on that last remaining barn that getting burnt down. So critical for all of us.
Yeah, I think it makes sense.
It looks like I think we should be taking some votes on these if we're planning on closing the warrant tonight.
No,
Well,
I mean, we haven't
You're-
voted on any of them.
you're closing the warrant, but you vote.
18.
You got us voting on the
the
18th.
finance committee, I always like
Be
to
a
see
joint
what the
meeting.
finance committee weighs into before we vote. I think they're meeting next week,
On the 11th.
I
the
can-
11th.
I can make my own decision without the finance committee.
I love to hear their perspective. That's good.
That's, I guess we all do our own thing, but
Yeah.
I vote the way I want to vote, not the finance committee. Anyway, let's move on. Mike, thank you so
Thanks,
much.
Mike.
Thanks, Mike.
Appreciate it. All right,
All right.
so it's
Article 6 is off, and
7 is prior year bills.
yeah, that's your typical, if we were invoiced in time or through error, a bill wasn't paid. We cannot pay it for previous years. It has to be authorized at special town meeting to pay last year's bills.
Okay. Nothing, can't see anything, comprehensive environmental.
What is comprehensive environmental?
That is the services that are being provided for Algonquin for the design services for the restoration.
And that wasn't anticipated at the,
Mhm.
Okay,
or not, so these are bills that came in. Yeah, got it. Never mind.
thank you.
And
Gotcha.
CPA extensions.
Mary is here, so Mary, if you're okay, can I hand it over to you?
Sure. We do put a time limit on CPA projects just so that they don't stay out there forever tying up CPA funds. And occasionally projects are in the works, but just need more time. We're actually gonna look at doing 3 years instead of 2 going forward, just because we seem to 2 years in today's hard time of getting contractors and bids and everything seems oftentimes too short. But 2 that were coming up that were to be done by the town meeting in the fall are the town hall pillars, which are in progress, but may not be done by town meeting. And then the Hockenham Cemetery fence, this is the first payment. There's been several, and there's just about 4,000 left in that, but it still hasn't been closed out. So we're asking for 2 more years for the pillars. Probably won't need it, but just to not have to, if it does need more than a year, not have to come back so fast. And then the Hockenham Cemetery will hopefully be well done by then too. I just want to say one thing too is our CPC committee talked about doing just a brief before Article 8 starts, or at the very beginning of Article 8, just do a brief update of the CPA fund balance and a little bit on the projects that are outstanding. If that sounds like a good idea with you as well, just to bring people up to date on what's been completed this year, what's in progress, just so people have a better overall picture of the CPA before we vote on a couple of the articles.
I
I
think
think-
people appreciate that, Mary.
I think everybody likes to hear what the balance is in there because it is our tax dollar that we're paying into every time we pay our taxes. So I think they do appreciate knowing what the balance is and where it's going.
Great.
I think also, I heard you do a presentation at one point that talked about how the state did the matching funds and where that has been with Hadley. And you did an overview of how much
The percentage.
non-Hadley money that we had in CPA over the years. I think that was very educational, and
Mhm.
if possible, that should be repeated.
Okay, I will include that. It's been about 7 million total, with about 40% of that coming from the state. So it's nice to have
Great.
$3 million of state money coming into Hadley for Hadley to decide how to spend. Absolutely. Thank you, Jane.
Yes, thank you.
Because our percentage is still at 3, correct?
It is at 3, which is the maximum.
Yeah.
Because we're at the maximum, there's a round 1, which last year everybody got about 39%. And then round 2, and sometimes last year there was around 3, only goes to the towns and cities at 3%. So our 39% went up to 94% last year and 100% the year before. So it certainly has brought in, we had a total of 631,000 last year was our biggest year ever, that we received total between the town and the state. And well, this year the state they get their main funds from a fee that's paid at the Registry of Deeds, and that's off about 30% this year because not many people are refinancing or putting on mortgages and other reasons to go to the Registry of Deeds. And the state in the last 2 years has put a surplus of 10 million and 20 million into the CPA, and whether or not they do that in a fall budget session, we'll see. So it may be a lot smaller amount this year from the state surcharge, but the town surcharge should be right on track.
Okay. Thank you, Mary. Appreciate that.
Thank
Maybe in the spring, we can put the town hall on for painting. I'll have to come see you. We need to
February
paint
1st, the application needs to be done February 1st.
February 1st. Okay, I'll keep that in mind. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, then you also have a CPA on the Article 9. Do you want to speak on that, Mary?
Sure. So CPA funds can be used for public and private, and certainly other towns and cities have awarded it to private. In this situation, Hadley has done APRs and they've done some money at some of the churches and the Historical Society, but hasn't, to my knowledge, done anything going to a private individual or a private business. So it's new territory for Hadley. The Paul Kozub at B1 Vodka just has the former St. John's Church, very much wants to preserve the church. And he's got quite a price tag to have to do it, and came to us to see about CPA funds for work inside and outside of the church. And the CPC, the Community Preservation Committee, Paul had a letter from the Historical Commission, which was wonderfully written, that talked about how, this was the first church outside of the Congregational Church as Hadley was growing and diversifying. It was the first Catholic church in town, and how it, is how even V1 Vodka represents some of the agricultural interests in town, with growing the wheat and things he uses in the vodka. So we weren't comfortable with doing anything inside the church from the CPA fund, because that isn't something that is open to the public. It's not a public good. But in terms of the outside of the building, we did recommend putting in funds, and we didn't do everything he asked for there either, but we did for the window frames and the tower restoration, the roof and the gutters, came to 120,400. And he had bids from companies with much detail in them. And we weren't willing to do a few other things because they really didn't benefit the public. And the idea of the benefit is that this historic building would be there to be seen. We would say that if he did this, he needs to put a historic preservation restriction on the building so that it would not be altered and it would not be part of it torn down, or it would be kept up. And I think that is a real benefit to the town to be able to have that put on there. And then we did put in there, if he has no intention, he says, to sell the building in the near future at all. But if it were to be sold within 5 years, that 125,400 would come back. We did include an extra 5,000 to help pay for the cost of the historic preservation restriction, because there's legal fees involved in that, that he would have to be paying. So that's a summary. Are there any questions on this?
Anybody have any questions? No, I think that's it, Mary. Thank you so much for your presentation.
You're very welcome.
All right, Carolyn, are we going to go to zoning bylaws? Jim on that wants to talk to the 2 zoning bylaws?
Skip those, don't we?
Do we skip them?
Yeah, usually.
Okay, I guess we're skipping them, Jim. Article 12 and 13, 14 all look related. Do you want to speak on those?
They are, I think I've discussed this before. The opioid settlement came down to the federal government. It's the best way to explain it. It's almost like a class action suit for pharmaceuticals that to help mitigate at the local level abuse from opioids that have been prescribed that have led into addiction problems. So the intent is every town, I don't know what the formula was allocated a certain amount of money. And so Hadley has gotten increments like every other community, and presently $45,000 is what we've gotten to date in the past 2 years. It hasn't been very long. The intent of the money is to help mitigate drug abuse, provide education for the purpose of preventing opioid addiction. So the money needs to be spent for that. So it's this first spending of it, we have to go through transferring it, the money that we have, it goes into the general fund, but it has to be voted into a stabilization fund first. Then there has to, it's three. We have to set up the stabilization fund. Then there's an article to transfer the money into the stabilization fund, and then authorization to spend it. That what we're considering, and we're still in the exploring stages of how we will spend this, but there is a position of a mental health counselor that works for both the police and for the Council on Aging. And it's been a really, really good position. And it's grant funded, and it's a shared position right now, right? For other communities. So we'd like to secure that, to make that more permanent for Hadley. And it really, for me, would be the best use of those funds. It's very directed. So we are just started the exploring. It kind of just came to me about 2 weeks ago, and I just texted Mike and Haley and said, what do you think? And so I think that's going to be the best use of it. What we have to go through this, there is discussion on to make this a simpler process, so that maybe there could just be a revolving fund that we can deposit the money into and wouldn't have to go to town meeting every year. Right now, this is how we have to start it. So this is where we're at. So
You have to set it up, basically.
it's got to be set up.
Hasn't
Yep.
never happened before.
Exactly.
Okay. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
The only question I have is just the wording on Article 14. Just the way it says, to transfer from the fund to spend it, to be expended for any lawful municipal purpose. Is that too broad?
This is from town council. I have to report I just finished a report that we hadn't spent anything and why, but I have to report it on a regular basis of what we're using it for.
Okay.
So it's going to be held accountable to.
So if you bought,
Yeah,
an IT server with it, that's not.
we probably would have to pay for it. We'd get in trouble for it.
Where are we with, I guess this would be for Chief Mason, where are we with, stocking our Narcan? How much is that costing? Is that
We're still on a grant.
still on a grant?
Yeah.
Okay,
So,
because that can be expensive.
well, we have a DART team, in Hadley, and that's part of a mini grant that you're on Hampton,
Mhm.
that we get annually, get Narcan replenishment whenever we need it. And they actually give us $1,000 annually to put into plant power, training, supplies, anything that we keep that's, opioid related. As far as,
Are you doing injectables or just nasal?
just maybe. As far as that position goes, obviously, I'm thinking that bigger. I'd like to build a whole program for this, mental health and substance abuse assistance.
Mhm.
We'd like to obviously embed a clinician with the police department, the same that we're doing, stay on the grant with East Hampton. And be able to utilize this person that we hired full time in this building, town hall, anywhere that we might need that. That would be too much to ask one person on the grant. That was kind of the idea. It depends on how much you got. We can certainly bring costs for professional initiative to work with us. But I'm hoping to build out in future years. Through the program.
I think as more programs become available, because having been a nurse, our goal when I was working in the hospital is that nobody nobody could be in pain. So if they were saying they were, and we went around and the hospital went around and put up these boards and the patient had to tell you what their number was for pain. So that was the big thing. That was the number 5 vital sign, pain. And if they were in pain, you were supposed to medicate them. So it's like coming full circle now that, oh my God, what did we do? And we were not helping, but that was what we were supposed to be doing. And so now everybody has gotten into a mess, more or less.
So is this an ongoing fund or was it a one-time?
It's for many years. Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
And will the amount be the same yearly or do they
I can, did I bring it with me?
reassess?
I can show you. It's goes out like 20 years.
So there may be more things coming along too that will
That we could use it for.
enhance programs
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
Good.
All right.
Yeah.
And then the last one is Birch Meadow Drive to accept it as a public way.
Okay,
And that's it.
sounds like a plan. Motion to close the warrant. No,
We have one more thing,
no,
the 5.1.
That
I
wouldn't be
missed- I'm
going in
sorry.
this warrant.
I'm sorry, 5.1.
Going back into your business, that's not.
Oh.
It's a future.
Oh, Administrator Act.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's for future.
But the warrant is the town administrator act on the warrant?
It's not, I didn't know if it was.
It's not.
Jennifer was asking if that's something that should be going
Until
into.
y'all close it. That's not an option to have it go on to.
I saw, now I understand. Let's hold off, if you don't mind, before we close the warrant.
Okay.
Thank you. Now I get it.
But I will remind everybody to close the warrant in state. That's not.
Okay. All right, so that's it on the town meeting warrant. Anybody else have anything to offer on that? Are we good? Okay. I guess we will go to 5.1, Strong Town Administrator Act.
Do you know what's it, Matt?
Oh, Matt, why don't we do you quick? Can we do
Sorry.
that, Troy, for a minute? Matt, come on up, Agricultural Commission. How are you tonight?
Good. Okay.
So I guess we want to talk about the Agricultural Commission and how you feel it's going, needed, not needed, participation. What do you think?
So my overall thoughts on the Agricultural Commission is that the town of Hadley should have an agricultural commission. Over the past few years, we have had some issues that I feel can be improved. And I kind of see this as a twofold problem. We've had an engagement problem where we've tried holding meetings. We've had limited availability, myself included at times in that. We haven't hit quorum at times, and I see Adam Goodman is with us, and Adam is a commission member as well. And so he has certainly seen this as well. But I think part of our engagement issue might be because we're kind of acting, I don't want to say independently, but a lot of our agenda items have been, what are we doing? What do we want to work on? The one project that we were able to accomplish over the past few years, probably 2 years ago at this point, was the right to farm signs that went up around town. We were able to collaborate around that and get that going. But overall, we've been more reactive than proactive, I would say, just trying to find our footing, figure out what we're doing. So I think having a sense of direction or a mandate from the select board will be helpful for this commission going forward. I know that the the commission was listed as having an active role in the master plan that came out a few years back. So I think kind of fleshing that out, kind of getting a sense of direction from this board will be helpful, and that might encourage more engagement. And the other point I'll just make in terms of engagement is I think the Agricultural Commission, and I know Northampton's dealt with this in some regards as well, is that we're competing kind of with other agricultural groups. I'm very active with the Mass Farm Bureau, and I know that while the Agricultural Commission here in town hasn't had a meeting this year, we've all been part of various meetings with MDAR, the USDA, various legislative tours that have come through the area as a result of the flooding that we've been dealing with and the severe weather. So overall, I would say there are issues that need to be addressed with this commission. I think we need some more membership, but I think solving what we are doing and what is expected of us will help with that engagement issue in some regards.
Is there a mission statement for the Agricultural Commission?
There is something that we drafted up 5-6 years ago. It's very just encompassing. So I don't think there was anything in the bylaw that specifically stated what we did. It stated that we existed, I believe. So what we drafted up was we serve as a voice for agricultural issues, represent the agricultural voice in town on issues, and we promote the agricultural history and story of the town through our involvement through this commission. So we do have a mission statement, but I think it can be better followed and enacted.
And what would you like us to do?
Give kind of a sense of direction of what your vision of the Agricultural Commission is. What do you want to hear from the commission? How do you see us adding value to the town? So kind of giving us a little bit of a sense of direction. I feel like we have some direction, but just to kind of formalize it and go, okay, there's this issue or there's this thing we're working on in the master plan. We would like the Agricultural Commission to look into this or give their opinion on this. So things of that nature, kind of giving us kind of a vision or consultation kind of, I would
Would
say.
that be like working with the bylaw committee also, do you think?
It could be.
You know, where they do a lot of the bylaws in regards to planning and the use of agricultural land and the solars that are going up on the agricultural lands and,
Yeah.
you know, people wanting now to put up housing on the agricultural land. So I mean, there are some, you know, things out there that certainly people are talking about that you got a lot of nays and a few yays. So I think, you know, maybe working on some of those things on how much solar do we actually want to have here in Hadley on agricultural land that's good farmland. And again, on housing on large pieces of property that was farmland, maybe guided by, surrounded by Conservation Commission restrictions also. What can we do to still protect that or to, you know, make it more feasible for people to want to put it into APR or whatever, you know, that, you know, those are the things that I think of as an ag commission to, you know, you've got the storage unit that went up on agricultural property. So that took away farmland there, you know, so I mean, there's all kinds of things, I guess, maybe being in conjunction with the planning board and the bylaw committee, I think, to see what is coming about and what they grant. Is that going to be a good thing for agriculture?
I think education.
Education.
Because I mean, you're in a great position. I mean, it's Hadley, it's any small town, it's any town for that matter. I mean, people run with information that may or may not be accurate, right?
Mhm.
So even like Mike was saying earlier with the ladder truck, I mean, people get parts of the information and not the whole picture.
Mhm.
And I remember, I think it was the Climate Change Committee did a presentation and it was great representations. Too bad you weren't there recruiting,
Mhm.
from some of the farmers in town. And many of them came in and didn't have good information to work with. They kind of heard about it last minute, so
Mhm.
having the Ag Commission be aware of, or other committees, maybe the other way around, all of the other committees, whether it's economic development, climate change, or climate, climate, or the Green Community Initiative, all of that,
Mhm.
making sure you're included, like saying, hey, we're talking about this, so that you can then get representation to make sure your folks have good information, I think would be a great use of the commission.
So how many active members? Just you and Adam now?
No, we have, on this meeting, just me and Adam, but, actively on the committee, we have, Joe Boisvert, Wally Sikowski, Michael
Okay.
Doctor, Alan Sowski.
Okay, so you got quite a
Yeah.
few good
Yeah.
people on to just get them out to the meetings would be helpful.
Yes.
Yeah,
And
so you
that's-
don't need any more than that, right, on the commission, do you think, or you want any alternates or?
We do have one alternate,
Okay.
Bill Handrich right
Okay.
now. I believe we do have one alternate opening. So having someone else as an alternate might be good. We are still actively gauging the active interest of everyone who wants to stay on the board. I try to check in with them when I can, and I am hoping to have a meeting once farming season is done, once we hit that first hard frost. Because I know it's very difficult to get them
right now
out of the fields right now, as we're all aware. And
Yeah.
so I am hoping over the winter to have a successful meeting with a quorum where we can discuss membership, reorganize our leadership roles on this board. Because that's kind of just rolled over from year to year. And I feel having some more representation in the leadership part of this commission would be
And it would be good to bring some of the thoughts that we just gave you back to your meeting, and see how they feel about that.
exactly.
Okay, and then you can report back to us, just let us know when you wanna come in and say, hey, this is what we would like, or whatever requests, and come back to us.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah, because I believe in this commission.
Oh, okay, Amy?
No, I was gonna say that, I mean, there's really 4 purposes to an agricultural commission. And that's really to protect the agricultural land, preserve the rural character of the town as a whole, and then be a voice for the farmers, as well as, encouraging and promoting agricultural based businesses in the town. I'm not sure about the laws for Massachusetts, but other agricultural commissions will actually buy, hold, manage, license, or lease land for agricultural purposes solely. I'm not sure if that's something that Massachusetts allows, but the 4 things that I said were something that an ag commission does. It's hard in Hadley because there is such a large agricultural base. But yeah, that's really what I was going to add to the conversation.
That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this is all great feedback for us, because we've started, stopped, stagnated, and then rinsed and repeated at times, which has been very frustrating for all of us, I know.
Yeah.
And so just getting a sense of direction, some solid ground we can get our feet on, and get some traction going in the right direction. We welcome all feedback.
Sounds good.
Yeah, thanks for keeping it together.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you
And
very
thanks
much.
for your time tonight.
Yeah, thank you
Just
for
let
having
us
me.
know what you need.
Yeah,
Okay.
it'll do.
Okay.
All right,
Thank you, Matt. I'm gonna just quickly do the liquor license agents, and then Mike can, unless you want, were you here for something else? Just supporting Mike? Yeah. Mike, it looks like the select board will appoint the following positions as liquor license officers. of the Board of Selectmen, which would be the Hadley Police Department. Police Chief, Lieutenant, Lieutenant, Sergeant, 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 Sergeant.
Which means any of those people can go in. and
Any
say
of
you're doing
those.
it Wrong.
Correct.
Perfect.
We're gonna bring down. Graduation. After that, like we'll chill on the 18th, but she said, go ahead and let's get these
Okay,
officers.
Motion to appoint?
Second,
okay. All those in favor, roll call?
Roll call, Rick Keegan,
Yes.
Yes.
Anderson.
yes.
Carson,
Yes.
thank you.
And I'm sure that Chief Mason will give us the names of the sergeants and whatever, so I just don't say sergeant, sergeant. I got the
Well, I
lieutenant.
think it's
down.
at the position.
The position itself at this point. Yeah, for right now, though, the one,
Something else.
one of the sergeants. Okay,
Want something to do position, we don't have to bring it back to you, if somebody leaves.
Yeah.
That position will just stay with.
okay,
Right.
perfect. Okay. That would be 4 in favor and 1 absent. Thank you. All right, working back up the ladder here. Yeah, we have a Strong Town Administrator Act. All right, that would be you, Troy. Thank you.
Yeah, right.
No, I don't think that.
Okay.
It was really just for reference for the board members. So good evening. So I wrote down my comments tonight so I can stay on track. And this is a culmination of probably the last 4 months of work where I'm here before you tonight just to kind of really point stuff out. So I'm just going to read directly off this so I stay on track. So tonight I come before you in advisory and informative capacity to provide the necessary information to make an informed decision on passing an article for the special town meeting warrant on an act establishing a select board administrator form of government for the town of Hadley. As a point of reference, I may refer to this act as a strong town administrator or strong TA throughout my presentation. In your board docs, you have been provided with the language for the act, as well as 3 slides which depict the current organizational structure that propose electing and appointing authorities and reporting structures. The final slide is a summary of key highlights, which are extracted from the language of the act. These slides are simply points of reference for ease of purpose, really just for your reference. That's all it is. I just figure like sometimes it's easier to see than just read. I'd like to provide a little bit of context to those in attendance and listening at home on how we arrived at this proposal. Upon appointment as the HR director, I met with the town administrator to learn what goals I could assist her in achieving. She informed me that one of her assigned goals was to develop a current picture of the organizational and reporting structure. I began to research historical files and documents with little results of finding anything current which I could utilize. A select board member met with me and discussed the importance of charting the structure, which was further emphasized in additional conversations in preceding weeks. In addition, this member of the select board suggested the need for researching a strong town administrator form of government and the process to take the necessary steps. I continue with my assignment of charting the current organizational structure and to provide myself with the most accurate picture. I began to research the Massachusetts general laws, town bylaws, annual reports. I started with a blank sheet of paper and began charting everything from the voters down to the appointed employees. I had a good grasp at that time of what the organizational structure looked like. However, did not have a clear picture of the reporting structure. So I went back to the Massachusetts general laws, the bylaws, the annual reports, and reviewed all the offer letters and employment contracts. I began to draw lines between supervisors and subordinates and quickly realized I had a piece of paper full of lines with no consistency clarity, or direction. This led me to understand where all of the confusion within the organization came from. From my professional experience, I know the original intent of the reporting structure was to be clear and easily understood by all members of the organization, elected or appointed. So I researched where this could have possibly gone off track. I found that through the development of employment contracts, reporting criteria shifted and was heavily weighted to the select board, boards, commissions, and committees, which further added confusion to the reporting structure. In a sense, there were two reporting structures. One that is factually defined and documented, and one that is individually perceived. And with no clear guidance in that, the natural human reaction is perception is reality. Just to provide a brief hypothetical example, if an employee is appointed by the select board and has a board or committee in which they work with frequently, then their perception could logically be that they then report to the select board and the board or committee in which they work frequently with. So then they would logically have the perception that this is who they are accountable to, when in all actuality, that may not be factually accurate. They then begin to primarily communicate with the select board and committee in which they work with daily, receive guidance and direction from them, request things from them, and go about their daily tasks. Then, when a select board or committee member inquires to the status of the task of assignment, which was assigned to the town administrator, she has no answer because the task or assignment was never communicated or mentioned at all to the town administrator. Further, the employee had no clarity on communicating with the town administrator, as the perception of the employee is the town administrator is not in their reporting structure. There's a clear breakdown in communication is really what it boils down, which is clearly due to the lack of clarity in the reporting structure. For employees to be successful, they need to clearly understand two things. One is, who is their first and second line supervisor? And two is, what are the expectations for them in their role on the team to be successful? So as you can see, this lack of clarity has not set our team up for success. And when there is a breakdown in communication and clarity, people become frustrated. This is a critical moment when people get frustrated. As when people get there to that point of frustration, they have two avenues to choose. The first avenue, they have the awareness they are lacking clarity and actively seek out clarity based on truths and facts. Or they arbitrarily fill in the gaps with fabricated narrative without facts, which then becomes their belief, but more detrimental their reality. When this occurs, deeper frustration, anger, and resentment take hold, which further drives a wedge in the communication gap, and spreading of misinformation takes flight. Having a better understanding of the situation, an effort to provide clarity was made by the town administration in mid-July through the select board approving the code of conduct and handbook for boards, commissions, and committees, encouraging members of elected boards, commissions, and committees to adopt these documents as well. In section C of the code of conduct, it states, excuse me, refrain from giving instructions to the requesting assistance from town department heads, but rather channel all such activities through the full board, commission, committee, and the town administrator. At the direction of the town administrator, I sent an email in late August to the team to provide opportunity for clarity. The number one topic in that email was direct supervisor and approving authority. And I quote, "Please clearly communicate with your employees who their direct supervisor and approving authority for requests are. If there is confusion or a need for clarity, please let me know, and I will help you to determine this information." Further, we've worked with cleaning up the employment contracts, and that's as you guys know, an evolving process. Our efforts to provide clear expectation on what is expected of our teammates to be successful in their role are currently in the works through the classification and compensation study, where they have direct involvement and input in the development of their job descriptions. Now I'll briefly revert back to the context portion of this discussion. The select board member referred to proposed the development of the current organizational and reporting structure, the identification of what strong town administrator organizational and reporting structure would look like, and to identify gaps which needed to be addressed to get us to the strong town administrator organizational and reporting structure, all of which have been identified and developed. I will now just provide you with a brief overview of the organizational and reporting structure and a summary of the key language encompassed in the Strong TA Special Act. Under the organizational structure, there's no change to the elected boards, committees, commissions, or officials. The select board will appoint the executive staff of the town administration, which includes the town administrator, chief of police, and fire chief. The town administrator obtains appointing authority of all staff with the exception of the chief of police and the fire chief. The chief of police obtains appointing authority of all police department and dispatch staff. The fire chief obtains appointing authority of all fire department, EMS, and ambulance staff. The reporting structure, the town administrator is the chief administrative officer and reports directly to the select board. The chief of police is the chief administrative officer of the police and dispatch departments and reports directly to the town administrator. The fire chief is the chief administrative officer of the fire department and EMS ambulance services and reports directly to the town administrator. All department heads report directly to the town administrator. All subordinate staff report directly to their respective department head, and in the absence of the department head, report directly to the town administrator. Just like some key language summary from that big 6-page. I'm not going to go in depth of that whole thing. You guys have it in front of you. So just some key languages that are in common to all the executives. So the town administrator, the chief of police, and the fire chief. They have the authority of organizational structuring and restructuring, and the authority of hiring, progressive disciplining, and removal authority. Town administrator has some additional specific things that I'd like to point out. Personnel policies, directives, and procedures authority, employment contract negotiations authority, collective bargaining authority, town property rental use, maintenance, and repair authority, serves as the chief procurement officer, and serves as the chief fiscal officer. This organizational reporting structure provides clarity to all members of the organization, and the adopted board, commissions, and committee code of conduct provides clarity and guidance to all the elected and appointed members of these entities. If any of your questions, I am finished up.
Can I go?
Yes.
So, first of all, the mystery board member was me. You could have mentioned that.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
Try to be respectful.
No, appreciate that. So, and I appreciate all the work that you did, because as we talked, there has been a lot of lack of clarity around the reporting structure. Personally, I think this is somewhere that a direction that we should go in. It wasn't my thought that we would do it that expeditiously, because I think we need more input. I've talked to a couple of other towns who've gone through this sort of a process where they're changing from, the select board having more control and turning that over to the town administrator. And typically it's more involved process. They get input from department heads, pros and cons, oftentimes community members. So, and I think that's when I originally brought this up with the select board, that was what I was envisioning. And we, Troy did a great job kind of saying, here's where we're at, but not necessarily the other stuff in the process is where we need to go. And I know that's part of Carolyn's goals too, to identify Carolyn's language points of failure in the organization, and so that we would have a better handle on that. So I'm kind of hoping that this is the beginning of the process. I wasn't thinking about it.
No,
actually
this
going
is,
on right now.
as I said at the beginning, this is advisory, informative from my perspective. You guys are receiving the research that I've been working on and conducting. Just really to provide you with that information of where we're at. Obviously, I would like to see it go up, but if you need more time, that's really on your discretion. I just wanted to provide you with the information that I had.
I think it gathers in actually what we have been trying to do over the last 21 years, to tell you the truth. We've always had the picture of who's where, what, and where, who reports to who. I think there's a little bit of confusion. And as you mentioned, the code of conduct, that as, and I never get the word right, but anyway, liaison,
Yeah.
that one. Anyway, I think that we aren't quick enough to, when people approach us and they're either have a gripe, they have something going on, they shouldn't be coming to us first. The very first thing I learned 36 years ago on school committee is that there is a chain of command. And that chain of command should be what we're telling our employees that they need to do. And I think we've not done a good job on that as a select board, in telling people, did you go to your supervisor? Did you not get any results from your supervisor? Well, then you need to go to your TA. I mean, same thing with the police. You got a disgruntled police officer or dispatcher or whatever. Did you talk to your boss? Did you go that route? Did you go to the chiefs? Did you do what you're supposed to do before you come to see us? Because the chiefs would bring it to us. And I think I've always used that rule of thumb when I've done my police or fire. I don't ever give you direction. I don't tell you what to do. We usually talk about stuff, but then you always need to go to the TA and talk to her about what things are going on in your department. And I think we haven't done a good job of that altogether, because I know people like to grab us when we go into town hall, and they always have something to say to us or to whatever, but we should go back to them and say, have you talked to so-and-so? Have you gone to do you have another problem with another staff member? Have you gone to, now that we've had HR, you've seen Troy to be the only one of the last 3 ones we've had that has done anything to make a change. And as we all know, people don't like change. It's very difficult sometimes for people to make a change, but when it's for the better, I think sometimes that's how we need to direct people. And I have been at this a long time. And I think that it doesn't help when people are disgruntled and then they get off track of what and where they should be going with what they want done or need to get done or have a complaint about. And I think that we as board members don't need to jump down the TA's throat and say, well, why didn't you do this? But when she's in the dark about not knowing what's gone on because that employee hasn't gone and spoken to her or to Troy or to somebody else and brought that forward. You can't do your job without knowing. And I think that's a really important issue that we need to follow up on as select board people, that we need to direct them in the right direction of where they should start their process and then go forward.
And
I think a lot of people don't realize like what we do. I think there's a lot of things that we, might be sticking our nose in that really aren't under our purview. And certainly when we are out there in the public talking to anyone, even town employees, that, we don't give them directives. and certainly we don't speak for everyone on the board for sure. So I think that, you know, can get lost in translation as well, because, you know, in my understanding is that all town employees are under Carolyn. And by us talking to them or giving them directives or anything like that, we're really undermining her authority and making her not, you know, besides not looking good, but it's really just not something that we should be doing.
Yeah, Amy, I think that there's a piece of that, but I don't think, I think what Troy's illustrating is that it's not clear from a reporting structure that they are under Carolyn. And when Troy and I first had the conversation, I mean, I know the complaint department's a piece of it, but it was more focused on clarity on accountability and goals. So if people have, who's holding somebody accountable for getting something done? And there were so many times where, in fairness to Carolyn said, but I think that's a select board issue, and so that's why I was hoping that we could start with what Troy's done, which is the inventory, like kind of here's where we're at. And then the next step is where do we want to go? And get more input on this, because to your point, as a select board that's somewhat removed, I don't think we should unilaterally push something like this forward to a town meeting without having had other people chime in. So that's really what I'm trying to get to.
I think the current organizational structure chart that Troy has put in front of us is really useful for people to get the big picture. Because the last time I saw the chart was the one you had made, which was like that.
Oh, and David Nixon's budget one.
Yeah, I couldn't fit it on one page. There was no way, so I just listed it down.
This is much more legible, streamlined, helpful, and I think even publishing this, what do? Send it out in everybody's paycheck and say, look, here's the chart of organization.
But see, in sending it out there, just one thing, in sending it out there and asking the employees that we're overseeing to chime in on what we want to do, this is our policy.
No, it's town meeting.
It's town meeting, but it's what we want to bring forward.
But we need more information. We have our opinion.
Yeah, again, towns I've talked to, this has been a multi-year process. So this is something that they do in one meeting. And again, what Troy has done is given us, I think, the foundation to highlight for people. This is why we need to have the conversation, right? Because, you know, I mean, if you go to town meeting and say, whoa, wait a minute, we've always run the town this way. It's always worked fine. You know, that's what people are going to say. And we're going to say, no, it actually doesn't work fine.
But this is what it should have been looked like.
I think this is a logical next step for the town of Hadley.
Amy, you want to just chime in before I take Dan? Dan Zadonik had something to say.
No, I mean, for people that work in town hall that don't know that, you know, who they're reporting to, that's a real big deal, because no one should ever be reporting to the select board. We don't work with them every day. So I think that in an expeditious manner, we should, you know, get this out to people, because it's a little unsettling to think that they don't know who they report to.
Dan Zadonik?
Yep. I think that this really needs to be vetted before the elected officials in town, the elected boards and officials. This was just dropped on everybody today at about 3 o'clock this afternoon with no input from the elected officials, the Board of Assessors, the library trustees, the planning board, the town clerk, the Board of Health. What's going to happen when they lose their employees? When they're appointed.
The elected officials, the select board does not have any oversee of any elected board or elected officials, except for code of conduct. Other than that, the elected officials are standalone on what they do within their department.
Right.
No, but
what this does is it makes Carolyn the appointing authority for my position, the health inspector, the library director, if we hire a town planner, the town planner, and it causes a major conflict between if I work for the Board of Assessors, but now I'm appointed by Carolyn, there's an issue there. If my board says, oh, a property value should be valued at this, and somebody else says, well, no, it should be valued at this, that's not on the board, what do I value it at? I'm no longer appointed by the board, even though they're responsible for valuing the property.
I think originally you weren't appointed by the Board of Assessors, were you, Dan?
Yeah, I'm appointed by the Board of Assessors.
So you were hired by the Board of Assessors?
Yes, and continue to be reappointed by the Board of Assessors.
And that's who you report to, because they're elected officials.
But the way I read this legislation is my appointing authority, and this, let me make it clear, I won't be here when this takes effect. This, I would now be appointed by the town administrator's position. Yet still have statutory responsibilities to the Board.
I don't see where it says that.
It's in the language in
It's on the 6-page.
Oh, the 6-page
Yeah.
thing.
So,
Okay.
so can I just come back to that? I mean, 'cause I know Joyce likes to spend a lot of time with us and have long meetings, but can I just
Something
suggest?
like this, I could stay until midnight.
Right.
So we're good.
So I'd like to propose a next step is that we take the foundational work that Troy has done and decide what we want to do to move forward. To Dan's point, planning board's going to want to chime in. You know, it shouldn't affect the school committee, but as Troy's illustrated, there's so many dotted lines. We need to know if in fact we execute this, exactly what does that mean from a day-to-day operational standpoint? What changes are going to you know, in terms of decision-making, what's going to change? What's going to affect other people's authority, perceived or not, today? And we really need to build out a roadmap for that, because otherwise we're going to trade one set of confusion for a whole other set of confusion if you don't have an implementation plan. So I'd propose that we take it the next step, and you know, whether it's a work group or whatever, figure out, you know, obviously with Troy, Carolyn, you know, I'm happy to do it from the select board, whatever, just figure out, okay, how do we take this? Who do we need to have involved, and come up with a plan to lay out what we want to do if in fact we're going to bring it to a subsequent town meeting. That would be my suggestion.
I don't mind being on this either, so that's fine with me.
I do think it's too involved to do anything abruptly.
Sure.
Specifically getting it onto the warrant.
But I do feel though, in my discussion tonight, that I think that we still have a duty that when we're is that damn word again, liaison. Yeah, thank you. We do that we should still be following that protocol.
Yeah, of course.
There's no question about that.
Yeah, but that's
Okay, so that's
not.
And I just want to point out really just more as a point of reference. So you think of like a company, right? So you have 3 executives and a board, right? So if she's the CEO and I have an issue with her, why can't I go to the COO or the CFO to have a conversation? Because I'm sure Mike would be willing to listen to anybody that, you know, maybe had an issue. That's just all my point is you wouldn't go to the board of directors, you would go internally to be able to resolve.
well,
You should go internally.
yes, but
That's
you
the issue.
you would go whether you had an issue with Carolyn or not. That's the chain of command. That's who's above you. That's who you would go to. If you don't get
Right.
headway to her, then it's brought to us.
Right.
And that's
the way
exactly
it
what
should be.
happens sometimes. People
Yeah.
feel like they're not making headway, so then it does come to us.
But if they haven't even addressed it and gone to somebody, then they haven't addressed it.
I agree. No question.
If they haven't addressed it,
No
I feel that
question.
they've addressed it already, I completely agree.
All right,
All right.
Well, thank you for your time.
all right.
Yeah, and thanks for the
And
work.
thanks for this chart. I think it's excellent.
Mhm.
So,
Can you put a big copy right up on town hall?
I can do that.
okay.
All right.
All right, so I guess we go back at this point. Shall we close the town warrant?
Sure.
Motion to close the town warrant?
Second?
Roll call vote?
Roll call vote, Keegan,
Yes.
Pamela,
Yes.
or Nevison.
Yes.
Parsons,
Yes.
thank you.
Okay, all right. Let's see, what's your license? We have.
And next
the
week,
AP
next meeting, we vote on.
18.
Yeah.
Yes, 18.
It'll be a fun-filled night of swimming.
Yay. APR for Catherine Kelly's property, and that would be,
Did we skip the council on aging director?
oh yeah, we did do that too. Well, let's do this quick while it's up, and then we'll do Council on Aging.
So NAR's come asking, for the select board to announce the notice. The notice is attached, and you could open it and just sort of read it. And then they're also asking for y'all to waive the 120-day, waiting period. These are sort of standard operating for this. This is first step on this, APR for Catherine A. Kelly property. And everything's loaded with LLC.
That's Stockbridge.
Stockbridge,
Some of it already is. It looks like she's adding.
She's
more.
adding to it.
Yeah.
13 acres.
07 acres.
And we're not aware of any abutter issue. I mean,
This is the first law out there.
Yep.
It's gonna come to us again, or again. And
right.
And before it goes to town meeting, so there's gonna be a lot more times to take stock of this if we'll allow.
So are we gonna waive the 120 day?
I would ask we to,
yeah, we've done it in the past.
Yeah.
First, you want us to read this thing out loud?
I want you to acknowledge that you've announced that it's there. Regarding proposed acquisition. That you're announcing that there's a proposed acquisition for the APR land.
That Joyce's job.
That the common, that we are, the Massachusetts Act by and through its Department of Agriculture has requested property in the name of Catherine A. Kelly be put into MDAR APR land. And they are asking for us to waive the 120 days notice period.
I move.
I'll second.
Okay, roll call vote?
Roll call vote, Keegan,
Yes.
Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you, and I'll bring this back to you once it comes through.
All right, now, I'm sorry, I missed that one. So we have, unfortunately, COA Director resignation of Haley Wood, which was quite a surprise and certainly regretful that she will be leaving us. So we,
Isn't Friday, November 1st?
No,
no,
November 3rd, Friday, November 3rd.
Yep. But her last day.
Her last day is 31st.
Yes.
of October. So that's a short time frame. So a new committee needs to be set up to interview, to organize for another director search committee. So how shall we want to go about it? I know that Jane, you have some names that you.
Well, as liaison, I would certainly like to be on the committee.
Okay.
Representing the board here.
So there are other people that normally we have them send in their, I know this is a short time frame because of her leaving so soon.
Somebody, certainly board of director members from the Council on Aging Board should be on.
Yeah, who did?
So Joyce, can I just, I had some discussions with Haley
Sure.
about her leaving and what her thoughts were, knowing that it is still your ultimate decision. I think one of the advantages is you're going with what her and I have discussed is you're going to have several people that are have very good understanding of councils on aging. So she had definitely mentioned Jane, but also two other council on aging board members, the chair and vice chair. So Linda Leduc and Rosalie Weinberg, because is it It's one, yeah, yeah. So that was as COA board members, but I also, obviously, you know, I was a COA director, so I have a lot of knowledge. And then Troy should be on it as the HR director.
Okay,
But it's your decision. You've known what you've had in the past.
so is that all that we need?
I would think so.
So-
Five is
Five?
enough. That's an
Yeah.
odd number.
Yeah, you don't,
Yeah, plenty.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and is Haley,
I think here, you know, it's your decision. I think it's helpful to have some input as certainly as we screen out some of the
I'm
applicants.
just thinking in the screening
She really
process, it might
should.
be great to have her involved.
You know,
Well, then the other thing, in the past, because I've been on all the committees with Jane Booth and with Suzanne looking for their replacements. It's very useful to have the current director be able to say to someone when they say, and what do you do specifically about this?
Mhm.
And we're all very happy and friendly, but we have no clue specifically about what the
Yeah.
council does. on
her
that.
role
role
would be really
specifically.
important.
So if she's willing, I think that would be wonderful.
if she has the time, it seems like she's,
She would definitely want to be involved.
okay,
Good, excellent.
hopefully if the time's available, but looks
So
like
how
our,
soon can we get an ad out? Here's the question.
ASAP,
They've already been talking.
Good.
that'd be Troy that would put that out,
Mhm.
okay.
Yeah, and there'll be resources that, you know, that we can, especially at that level, to be able to advertise more particular to COA directors. And then I would suggest taking some time, but on the next select board meeting to talk about what do you want to do for interim. Haley has a suggestion, but I will, I think that could be, because it's not on the agenda right now, to appoint someone to have that on the agenda for the next meeting.
At least have a contact person.
Mhm.
Okay. All right, sounds good.
Sounds good.
And then we have the town administrator report this evening.
Okay. I do want to remind you for the Touch a Truck, that's still taking place. We're still going to move forward. One of the things about the benefit of taking more time to, as far as going right to a design and architects, we have a lot more time to educate the public about the building. So we are going to continue to do that. So you have the brochure now and you have October 14th, Touch a Truck. That's moving forward. And Lauren has done a great job. I think most of it is getting sponsored. As usual, local businesses have been very supportive. The bike path, as you can see, if you drive down Route 9, they do now have a police detail, and the detour seems to be working okay. The classification, compensation, and succession plan, the draft job descriptions were received, I think, yesterday. So we have not had a chance to look at them, but the process would be to review, look at edits, look at any typos, share them with the employee, share the job description pertinent to the right employee, get their feedback, and then have those go to the select board for review. And then if there's more edits that need to be done, to give them back to the Collins Center to get some final drafts for you. So.
Okay.
And then I'm just moving along. ADA, that's almost all of the buildings have been done. I think public safety is next for the ADA assessment. Town Hall Columns, as you can see, has begun slowly, but it does not seem to be, I have not heard of any complaints. They're burning off the
Almost
paint.
looks like they're painting the whole frontage with the windows all taped up. That would be lovely if they did that.
It's slow. Russell School, the proposals will
That
do
ain't
October
jumping
12th.
yet.
That's our next
And you had a
deadline.
huge number of people request information.
Yeah, but we didn't have a large group for the 2 walkthroughs. So that's kind of more reflective of who
Okay.
will, but we'll. Okay. So, and regarding the software for the budgeting software, I can't remember if if I found out after the last meeting, but because we had done a community compact grant and were awarded less than 2 years ago, I thought it was two different entities, that there was an IT, because it's two separate funding categories, IT and then best practice. We did get the compensation study under the best practice, so we're not eligible until next year for a community compact grant, but trust me, we will have something else that we will need to get some funding for. So that's why it's on the town warrant the way it is, because the warrant the way it is. And I promised Amy Jennings from Park and Rec to acknowledge that the Shag, how do you say it?
Shag.
Thank you. Parade will take place on October 29th, and it's being hosted by the Hadley, the American Legion. And on 10/27 is trunk or treat, and that will take place from 5 to 8 at the Public Safety Building.
And hopefully no rain.
Never.
Never. They'll have fun anyway.
They always do that. Kids don't care if it rains or not. Any
That's it.
ambulance is moving along. That was in your report too.
Well, I saw it drive by the other day. I don't know what it's
All
doing.
right, I have a personal story.
Go for it.
Last week, I got to ride in 3 different ambulances, including ours, and ours was by all hands above, the most comfortable.
Oh, nice.
That's good
to know.
Oh,
No, listen. An ambulance is no fun, and ours doesn't do that.
that's so nice to hear. You have to share that. Oh,
Yeah.
my. You need
Or the
some
road
good
was
news.
better one way or
No,
the
we're
other.
going the same place.
Same place. Oh dear. Well, I'm sorry about that. Yes.
So, on your meeting on the 20th, y'all, I asked to delay, because it's late, on the town website discussion. And then I left it out tonight because I thought the warrant, y'all might not want to take it up, but I do have it on the agenda the 18th. And I've actually had some additional conversations. I'll actually have more information to bring to y'all about the town website.
Looks like Sue's got her hand up.
Sue has her hand up there. Sue, what can we do for you?
Yeah, I just wanted to remind Jane to note that Eddie Foreman is playing this Sunday and tickets
I
are
was
still
gonna-
available.
I'm going to also announce that we're having a goodbye, but not, so long but not farewell reception open to the town for Haley here on
Nice.
Friday, the 27th, from 3 to 4.
Okay, great.
Nice.
Would you say
Right,
3 to
right before the Fricker trunk.
Anybody else have any?
The only thing I was gonna mention just kind of falls into the liaison report. Ann Goby is the new director that was appointed by Maura Healy. She's kind of the czar for rural communities, and Hadley's part of that constituency. And they had a meeting that was put on, more of a meet and greet by the FERCog, Franklin Council of Governments, this week. So I had the opportunity to attend. She's a dynamo, and a lot of really positive initiatives that are already underway, and I think some that Habit's going to be able to take advantage of. So something I think we want to keep on our radar is what she's working on.
She's going to do ongoing ongoing listening sessions as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's planning on
Very
going to
engaged.
each and every community.
Yeah.
And it turns out of the 81 communities in the Commonwealth, 181 currently qualify as a rural community because it's strictly based on population. So they have extremely wealthy Martha's Vineyard communities lumped in with Whately and Hadley, and that's something else that they're taking a look at in terms of how money's dispersed.
Well, and on that line, one of the conversations that I had at one of those meetings, and I must say, Maura Healy is doing a lot of these listening sessions all around for various constituents, is that often the value of the town's income is really skewed by 1 or 2 people, especially when you have a small town population of 500, you have 2 really wealthy people. Takes them right up.
Look at
So-
Michael Kittredge's property
Yeah.
in Leverett. Beach, an example.
So they need to do something like look at the bell-shaped curve and cut off the ends or something when they're really calculating. But they were talking about actually doing that, which I thought was very exciting.
So if I can also remind you, on the 25th of the event, Lieutenant Governor is going to be here. It is invitation only for local officials. So if you want to attend that, please.
The
So,
25th
because
of
we're maxed
October.
out. Mhm.
October.
October 25th, it is the day before your meeting. Yes, but I just wanted to be clear that it is
What
invitation
time is
only.
that?
From
One,
2:30 to 4:30.
yeah,
And that's a Wednesday.
so that was great. They picked out Hadley.
Yes, really.
I can be there.
Thanks, Joe Comerford.
Do I tell you or to?
You have to register. I had sent you guys something, but if you need me to resend it, I can resend it.
Okay. I have the flag banner committee has up and running and we have our applications out. There are some here at the senior center, at the library, town hall, the Sugar Shack. So we have posted them out and we're looking for
There's some
for
at the
people.
Legion?
There's some at the Legion.
Good.
Yes, there's some at the Legion. So if you have a loved one or a person that you know that was in the service, and if you would like their name or face on the flag that we are putting up in the center of town, they're very nice. I don't have one with me right now, but it's going to be every other pole. You have the American flag, and then you'll have a veteran in the center of town, Middle Street, wherever the American flags are. Every other pole is going to be a veteran. So we would like to get started with 75 and have those up and running for May for our parade.
Now, is there any stipulations? There must have been Hadley residents at one point or
For
during their
5
service.
years. 5 years.
5 years.
You have to be a resident for 5 years. You could be a graduate of Hopkins Academy, gone in the service then. We're doing all Gold Star free, so we are doing some fundraising. So if anybody just wants to donate, that also is on the website that you can see where if you just want to donate and not do a flag. We also have garden flags if you just want to do a garden flag and not a big flag. So there are those available too. So all of that information is on the applications. We will be at some events around town as a pop-up just to answer any questions that you might have. So we're going to be doing that. So we're off to a good start. I have, unfortunately, I had so many passings, not only here in Hadley, but I'm not, throughout the area towns that certainly have touched my heart, but in speaking with our citizens, we've had Wesley Kornewski that passed away. He did live in Belchertown, but he was a graduate here at the schools, and he has many family members that live here in town. Ray Latham, his sons are David and Stephen, and he has Henry Latham, his brother lives here in town. So condolences to the Kornewski and the Latham family. We had the passing of Sandra Orzlik. Her husband Bernie had worked for us for the DPW, but her maiden name was Phil. Her brothers are Dennis, Phil, Ray, and Robert. So condolences to her family. We had Cindy Taylor Price. I actually babysat for her growing up in Northampton, but her sister is Diane Damon of Hadley. So condolences to Diane, Donna, and Linda on the passing of their sister. And then, of course, much sadness with the passing of David Chicos. That was, quite sad for all of us because David was involved with so many activities here in town, whether it be Park and Rec, the food pantry, just a very well put person here in town. He was nothing but a gentleman and a real just nice guy. So condolences to Diane, his Christian and Kira and his sister-in-laws, Linda and Lori, Lorraine. I mean, I could just go on, but he just touched so many people's lives. So much sadness on his passing. So condolences to them. And that's all I got. It's enough.
Motion to adjourn then?
Second,
Okay.
Roll call vote, Keegan,
Yes.
Chugalo.
Yes.
Evanston.
yes.
Parsons.
Yes.
Okay. Good night, everybody.